Hello and welcome to another topic video. Today we are going to be chatting about proofreading. The idea makes some people sweat and it makes other people turn their head and wonder what on earth I'm talking about, but proofreading is an important part of the writing process, so let's get going. The official definition of proofreading is to read printers' proofs or other written or printed material and mark up any errors. But what does that mean in terms of the writing process, and when should we be doing it as writers, if at all? Now, I've heard lots of misconceptions about proofreading in my time, so as a trained proofreader, I like to try and help people understand the skill a little bit better. In publishing, proofreading is the last step that takes place just before a manuscript is approved to go to the printing press as a book. So the proofreader will read a paginated version of the book in the form of printer's proofs, and they look for any what are called top-line mistakes. These are spelling errors, formatting problems, punctuation mistakes and inconsistencies, and also things like making sure the book is in a consistent language throughout, such as UK versus US English. When a proofreader is finished, they're giving their personal seal of approval that there are no errors in this material, and only once they've given that approval will the manuscript go to press and start production as a finished book for distribution to readers. So there's a lot of pressure on proofreaders in the publishing world. Of course, when we as writers proofread our work, there's nowhere near as much pressure, but I still think that every writer should try to give proper proofreading a go. But first, here are a few things that proofreading is not. It is not just a casual read-through to check for mistakes. It is not just one last read-through. It is not another way to say editing. It is not something that you do to read through and get ideas for later in the book. It is not something you do to help make a list of things you want to change during drafting. It is not something that you can do as you go, and it is not something that will only take you a couple of hours, and many more of the misconceptions that I've heard in my time. Proofreading, most importantly, is not just editing or just reading through. It is a totally separate skill and should be treated as one. Proofreaders even have their own little language of symbols that used to be used to mark up paper proofs, though I'm sure now to save paper it's probably more likely done in PDF format using markup tools maybe. I proofread, or ever read as it can be known, as part of my job, but I work with much more technical material than fiction. So when proofreading, you shouldn't be doing things like changing sentence structure, arbitrarily making changes to word choice, moving paragraphs and sentences around, etc. When you proofread, you literally only mark up the things that are physically incorrect. This is why we call it top line only, not just things that you would prefer to change. So this is why proofreading should always be done as a final step at the very end of a project when you've finished all your drafts, rewrites, line edits, beta feedback and general tweaking, and are otherwise completely happy with it as you are ever going to be. After that, leave your project alone for at least a whole month before you proofread. Don't roll your eyes and gasp, I know that's a long time, but with proofreading, ideally, you need to have never seen a piece of material before to be 100% effective. And since that's not possible with something that you've written, you need to give your eyes and mind a break, because the biggest enemy to effective proofreading is already knowing what the material says. So when you know a piece well, you are less likely to be able to see mistakes, because your mind will see what it thinks is there and what it expects to be there, rather than what is actually on the page. And that is why you can have read a paragraph 6 times and still miss that horrible typo. At normal reading speed, the mind doesn't really care what orders the letters are in a word, so long as the first and last ones are in the same place and the words are roughly the same shape. And you don't look at every single letter in a word when you read at normal speed either. And this leads to the next thing that a lot of people don't realise about proofreading, and that is just how painfully slow you have to read. Like, to give you an idea of this, for my job, we work on the basis that you proofread at 1,000 words an hour, roughly. Yeah, that's a whole hour to properly proofread just 1,000 words. That is hella slow, but much slower than people realise. And so for instance, a 3,000 word article will take roughly 3 hours to proofread. However, as I said, I do work with technical material, so I think for fiction it's safer to say that your reading speed should be around 1,500 to 2,500 words per hour, but no more if you actually want to be at a realistic, effective proofing level. So if you think you're reading slowly, try halving your speed, and then you'll probably be closer to the speed of a proofreader. Of course, with professional proofreaders who do it like day in, day out, they will build a slightly faster proofing speed over time, but it will never be as fast as even a casual leisure reading speed. It is this slow because you need to look at every letter in every word and confirm with yourself that you're happy that it's 100% correct, and then that the sentence itself makes sense too. So to demonstrate, I am going to read out 3 sentences at proofreading speed at the end of the video with a timer underneath so that you can see how long it takes me and what speed is actually used. The next question I am sure you are going to want to ask then is, well, wouldn't it be better for someone else to proofread my work for me? And the short answer is yes. If you are going to self-publish your work, I'd certainly recommend getting an external proofreader to check your work for you if you're not a trained proofreader yourself. But it is also well worth proofreading the whole thing yourself as well. It could help you to become more aware of common spelling mistakes that you might struggle with but didn't realise. It may make you better aware of the difference between UK and US English, as I see projects written with a mix all the time, and it might bring a punctuation or formatting weaknesses to your attention too. And all these tiny little things will overall reduce your mistakes in future drafts, especially if they're ones you make consistently. So it is a really nice feeling to go through and just comb out all those elusive little errors, since when you're done with a proofread and you've made all the changes, you really will have made the manuscript shine just that extra little bit more. There's also the money issue, because proofreaders can be very expensive, and especially for large projects, as many of them take payment based on the amount of per hour or per word, per set of word counts. So it's well worth the investment for those of you who are self-publishing. And of course there are websites like Fiverr or Freelancer where you might be able to find the services a little cheaper, although you should always vet your proofreader and check reviews first. So it's something to consider as an important step in preparing your work for self-publication. Now, if you're going to traditionally publish, it is still worth proofreading yourself, especially since there's no point paying for a proofreader if you're going to query a book. And that is because if your book is sold, the publisher will have a proofreader as part of the editorial team and it will get done then. But it still doesn't mean that you can send in a full copy of your manuscripts to agents riddled with errors. So maybe next time you've finished a project in its entirety, consider adding that proofreading pass as part of your process, if you don't already, following a month's break minimum. So that's pretty much it. In a nutshell, proofreading is important and something I think should be added to the end of every writer's process. Proofreading is a separate skill to editing and it is slow work that requires a lot of patience, but it'll be more effective for you if you're not looking at the project for at least a month. You should also consider hiring a proofreader if you're going to self-publish a novel or a novella or anything, but you don't need to if you're going to traditionally publish. However, for both routes, proofreading yourself is a valuable learning experience. So let's get on with the proofreading demonstration. When proofreading, it is important to slow down enough that your mind is actually seeing the words on the page, rather than the ones it thinks are there. Typos are easily missed when people try and remember what they wrote and what letters are in the words they are looking at. Proofreading is a valuable skill that can be beneficial to all writers. The downside is just that it is so very excruciatingly slow work. When proofreading, it is important to slow down enough that your mind is actually seeing the words on the page rather than the ones it thinks are there. Typos are easily missed when people try and remember what they wrote and what letters are in the words they are looking at. Proofreading is a valuable skill that can be beneficial to all writers. The downside is just that it is so very excruciatingly slow work. So, was proofreading what you thought it was, and do you have it as part of your process? Tell me below in the comments, and also let me know if I broke any misconceptions you had about it, or if you've heard some from other people as well. So the next topic video is going to be out on the 5th of April, and we'll be talking about juggling multiple projects at once. Please subscribe and click the notification bell if you don't want to miss it. I hope all your projects are going really well and that you're all taking care of yourselves. Keep on scribbling, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye guys!